Good evening, everyone. I'm Right Reverend Laurie Denman, Archpriestess of the Correllian Nativist tradition, and I'm also the High Priestess and Temple Keeper for a full temple of the tradition, Chosen Path Church in Jacksonville, Florida. And I'm here at your disposal to answer any questions you might have about witchcraft, about the tradition, about witch school, anything I can do for you. Hi, Geneva. It's nice to see you. Hi, Ed. Hi, Lord Don. Some of the duties that I perform for the tradition is I am the membership specialist for witch school. So whenever you have a problem with the system or forgot your password and can't get the email or whatever it can be, those emails all come to me, and once a day I go through them and take care of everybody. And I upgrade your memberships when you have a supporting membership, which I highly recommend. You can join Witch School for free, but that only gives you access to 32 courses. If you get a subscription, you have access to almost 200 courses. And subscriptions are available for as little as $5 a month. Discounts given for longer terms, of course, up to including a lifetime membership. So for a one-time payment, you have access for the rest of your life. So I highly recommend you check out Witch School if you haven't. Hopefully you have, since you're tuning in from the Witch School official page. And let me be of service to you there in any way that I can. Hi, Melanie. Hi, Justin. Hi, Cynthia. Justin, you said you would like to learn more. Learn more about what, honey? Give me a what? Okay, well, I'm just going to assume. Okay, Justin, good afternoon, Laurie. I have found some spells online, one to increase psychic ability. Do those actually work? Is that a no-no? Oh, no, psychic ability is a yes. The very first chapter of our first degree course, we start you on psychic exercises. And your psychic ability is just like any other muscle in your body. The more you use it, the more you train it, the more you'll be able to accomplish with it. And this is so important in our tradition and to our clergy because we do a lot of ancestor veneration in the Correllian tradition. And many traditions have ancestor veneration. But to us, there's very little difference between being incarnate and discarnate. Incarnate being in the physical world, discarnate being in the spiritual world. And we believe that when you pass, you can communicate with the people left in the physical world. And you can not only communicate, but you can have meetings, you can plan strategies, you can participate in decision making. So we believe that the ancestors are very connected to the workings of the tradition and our role in the world of developing psychic ability. We call that the great work. We very much stress psychic ability. So I highly recommend that you sign on to Witch School, create a basic account, and with that basic account, you have access to the first degree clergy program. And part of that program are 12 lessons in exercises to develop psychic ability. So yes, you can read books about it, but until you practice it and have exercises that you do on a routine basis, you will not reach your full potential. I hope that answers your question. Have another question about how did I come to this path? Okay, well, I left the Roman Catholic Church when I was 23, when my mother passed, and she died begging us to pray her out of purgatory, because during her last rites, the priest told her she was going to purgatory because she had used a diaphragm for birth control. She never even chemically altered her body. She just used a diaphragm. Didn't sit right with me as a young woman. So I left the church and I explored many other churches, many other religions. Being raised Roman Catholic, ritual was very important to me. It gave me a sense of comfort. So I looked at the major organized religions, and I always found there was a yes, but. There either was a theology question that I didn't agree with, or a political question, or I'm a meat eater, so that knocked out quite a few. But I developed a code of ethics that I ran my life by. My husband ran his life by. He bought into them as well. And we raised our children through this code of ethics. And it basically had 3 rules. One was I could do what I want as long as I didn't harm anyone, including myself. Number 2 was that all life was sacred. And when I think of life, I think of down to the cellular, molecular structure. I don't make a difference between an amoeba and a cow or a person. All life is sacred. And then the third one was that I had to do service in the world. I couldn't just take from the world. I had to participate. I had to give back. The world had to be better for me having been able to live in it. And as part of those things, I became a Girl Scout leader and a Boy Scout leader. And one day I was sitting around the campfire at Girl Scout, and I handed a check to one of my fellow leaders who did a Christian missionary to Jamaica every year. And for some reason this year, she just seemed bent on labeling me as a Christian, even though I had always disclosed that I was not Christian. And she said, well, you live your life like a Christian. I said, no, I don't, because I don't recognize Christ as my Lord and Savior. I think I'm in control of my own destiny. And so she said, well, how do you live your life? And I went through my 3 rules. Another leader around the campfire piped up and said, ooh, you're Wiccan. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not. That's just something the girls are into. I'm not Wiccan. I really didn't know much about Wiccan other than it was out there somewhere. So she gave me a couple of book titles to read, and after I read them, I went over to her house and I'm like, guess what, Jessica? I'm Wiccan. So I became what I call a Barnes & Noble witch. I got every book I could put my hands on and I read it. I did very little, though. I read a lot, didn't do much. So finally, my son let it slip to my husband that I was Wiccan. And suddenly that was a bad thing. Even though that code that we both lived our lives by really are the foundation of Wicca, because it had the word witch attached to it, it was considered dark and evil in his mind. So out of respect to my husband, I just kind of went in the closet. My daughter and I did a couple of spells when she went off to college, putting protections and wards on her apartment, that kind of thing. Fast forward a couple of years, and my husband and I wound up separating. He had drug abuse issues with prescription drugs. But I was his wife of 35 years, so I still took care of him. I still went grocery shopping and cleaned his apartment, did his laundry. We'd go to lunch occasionally. And at one of those lunches, he asked me if this witch thing was kind of going to stick. I said, yeah, I think it is, but you don't have to worry about it. I haven't even ever been to a ritual. So driving home, I got to thinking, why I've been to a ritual. So when I began the Wiccan path, I attached to the Jack's Pagan Pride Association Facebook page. And shortly after that luncheon, I got a notification from the page that a lovely lady by the name of Holly Charlin was going to start a Wicca class, Wicca 101 class, hey Ed, at the local UU. So I went to the class. And it clicked. There was no yes but. I didn't find anything that I could not fully give myself to. But the main thing that really reeled me in, kind of thing, was that the Correllian tradition teaches that all religions are equally valid. We compare it to looking at a diamond. If you look at a diamond, each of us will look at that same diamond and get a slightly different reflection in it. We'll see slightly different prismatic effects. And when you look at the goddess, when you look at the divine, no matter what religion you are, you're looking at the same divine. There's only one divine. But each of us looks at the divine and interprets the divine through that unique lens to us that makes us be able to connect with the divine and understand it. So we teach that no matter what religion you are, it's a perfectly valid religion to you, and that's all it needs to be. It doesn't matter if it's not valid to your neighbor. It only matters that it's valid to you. So that really was the deal clincher for me, because everything was respected as being equally valid. So that's how I became a Correllian. I took the Wicca 101 class and had no intention of ever being clergy. I am a very introverted person, but a lot of groups will only take care of people that are in their group for whatever reason. And I'm not saying their decision is wrong, it's right for them. But about 80% of Wiccans or pagans are solitaries. They've either walked away from organized religion and haven't unpacked the baggage about being part of an organized religion, or they're just more comfortable working with themselves. But those people need clergy every now and then. When you're hospitalized, you need somebody to come cleanse your room of negative energy. You have wickenings and funerals and hand fastings and all the things that life rites that take a clergy. So I became clergy to serve those solitaries. And I really kind of closed the door on the ancestors when they were telling me it was time to start my own temple. But I finally obeyed, I finally listened, and Chosen Path Church is, I think, going on 4 years now. So, hi Maria. Any other questions? Hey Elizabeth, it's good to see you. I love your newest painting, it's gorgeous. I did have one question come in ahead of time from E. Sylvia Simpson, and she apparently has moved in and out of the tradition and now is working with people within the tradition and people without the tradition in the Spanish-speaking world. And her question was, what is the Correllian's point of view on practicing Wicca in a country that has more or less a state religion? Depends on what the country is. I don't know if any of you have been around long enough to remember But we actually had a Correllian in a North African country that was dragged out of his home and beat to death in front of his wife and child because he was Wiccan in a Muslim country. I would recommend staying in the closet in those countries. However, in those countries where there is just a majority religion, but you can freely practice a different religion without fear of physical harm, then it's up to that individual whether they're in or out of the closet, so to speak. We have many, many members in the Spanish-speaking world. I do know that they have a hard time getting Wiccan books. Not very many are translated. However, the tradition has not only translated the clergy courses into Spanish, and they're offered on Witch School, but we also have radio broadcast every night of the week, and I believe it's Sunday night or Monday night, it's in Spanish. So we do have a very strong outreach to the Spanish countries. The Correllian tradition is in 113 countries around the world. So we work frequently with minority religions in countries that are very strongly majority one religion. It's something that each individual has to judge for themselves how open they want to be about it. But if they're not open, it's generally because of personal safety issues. The second part of that question was, do we allow them to go to church on Sunday and practice Wicca the rest of the week? Absolutely. As I said, all religions are respected by the Correllian tradition. We never ask for exclusivity. You can be a Correllian and you can be something else as well. Even Lord Don is an Icean, very high up in the Icean priesthood. So wherever Spirit calls you, go. Check it out, because Spirit has something to show you and teach you there. And you can be in more than one religion at the same time. Thomas asked what path I follow, and I do follow the Correllian Nativist tradition. And that tradition is a mixture of Wicca and Cherokee Native American teachings. Our founder was of Cherokee blood, and so a lot of her familial traditions were passed down over the past 115 years, I think we're approaching, and are very strongly part of our tradition. We have a Correllian shaman training program that is heavily based on the Cherokee part of our tradition. Yes, Kathleen, you can be multiple religions at the same time, because you might have a piece of this religion that talks to you, and you might have a piece of that religion that talks to you, that fulfills you spiritually. And as long as you can reconcile the differences between those religions in your own mind, why not take advantage of those pieces that make you happy and connect you to divine? But that's a personal reconciliation that everyone has to do. I believe in this so strongly that at Chosen Path Church, I have non-Correllians on my board of directors. I have Christian members of Chosen Path Church, and they come to ritual and they join our prayer circle and they work energy with us, and they're devoutly Christian. So it just depends on how you look at that light of the divine and connect with it. Has anybody else got a question? Let me scroll up to make sure that I haven't missed any. Okay. Geneva said she posted, so excuse the turn of the head, but I'm dual monitoring here. Let me see if there's another question that I can see on the event. I don't see one on the event, Geneva, so if you would go to the event and post your question, then I can see it. Okay, because I've only got the event screen up and the live broadcast screen up, because I can't pay attention to too many things at one time. Okay, Geneva says, what does Hippolytus mean? Well, since I'm having a hard time pronouncing it, I don't know, Geneva. I'm going to have to look that up. That's a new word. Let's just do it. We'll do it together. Very wise man told me one time that no one knows everything. So if you know where to go to get the information that you don't know, that's a mark of intelligence. And it is an ancient Greek tragedy by Euripides, based on the myth of Hippolytus, son of Theseus. Okay, so it is an ancient Greek play. Dawn asks, wait, you tell people you can teach them to be psychic. Yes, ma'am, we do. Everyone is born with psychic ability, unless you're disabled in some way. You know, some people are born blind, some people are born deaf, some people might be born without a psychic ability, but it's a rarity. Everyone has psychic ability. The trick is to develop it. And there are a lot of exercises, mostly visualization, mostly working with energy in your chakras, that will allow you to open up your psychic ability. Someone is asking me to tell them about them based on their name. I'm sorry, Kathleen, I don't do that. Ed asked if I have a favorite spell. I don't do a lot of quote-unquote spell work. When I do spell work, it's usually a protection spell, or it's preparing a spell for someone that has come to me with a particular issue that they need help with, so I prepare it for them, or I teach them how to do it. A lot of times when I'm doing public speaking, I get people that ask me, ooh, what's a spell? Ooh, it's kind of spooky, it's kind of scary. But I try to explain it in a way that the general public might understand. And I explain it to them as a prayer. When you pray, you are focusing your communication with the divine. That's a form of energy work. When you do a spell, you don't need candles or herbs or stones or any accoutrement to do a spell. You can do it simply with energy work. And that's how I usually function. It's not for everyone, but I love my energy work. So when I do a spell, I do it as in the form of a prayer. And I do it with full intent. I do it with thinking about what the possible ramifications of a spell gone awry might be, because I don't want unintended consequences. I make sure that it's specific, because if you're not specific, the universe might give you something else than you were expecting. Now, you can do a spell with accoutrements, and this is still, in my mind, energy work, Because if you're using a specific color candle or you're using a specific herb, you're using the energy of that thing to accomplish a goal. Excuse me, I need to take a drink of water. I have COPD, so when I talk a lot, I start coughing. I apologize. So you're using the molecular structure or the sound energy or the color energy of those things that are gathered together to work with a spell, because they work well together. If you've ever done work with essential oils, you know that some oils work well together and some oils don't work well together. They kind of counterbalance each other out. So things that are used in spell are the same way. You don't want to just start randomly putting things together to do a spell, because you may cancel out the energy. One thing may cancel out the energy of another. But if you do your research and you understand how things work together, then you can pull objects together or sounds together, or images together to work a spell. Okay, let me scroll through here. Sheila says, when I tell people all paths lead to the divine, I get such negativity. Christian and Wiccans both tend to be very negative to this idea. I have not experienced that, Sheila. When I use that diamond analogy, it usually works pretty well. In fact, we were just doing an Ostara ritual at a local park recently, and I was a guest at the ritual, and the high priestess that was putting the ritual together was busy working the altar and getting everything arranged. And we had a young gentleman with a Bible come over and ask us what we were doing. And we explained, and he immediately started apostolizing to us. And he asked questions that opened the door for me to bring out my diamond analogy. And it got him thinking. He was kind of at a loss for a comeback for that, other than the tried or true that there's only one way, and that's through Jesus Christ. So it depends on how you present it, I think. I use analogies a lot when I explain Wicca. In the comments on the event is a sermon that I did at the Arlington Universalist Unitarian Church quite a few months ago. And I explained what Wicca is as a religion and where it fits into the world of religions, using umbrellas. So give that sermon a listen and see if maybe you can use the diamond and umbrella analogy, Sheila, and go from there. Hi, Craig. It's nice to meet you, too. Robin wants to know where I'm located in Jacksonville. Currently, I live in Mandarin. However, I've purchased an acre and a half on the northwest side of town off of Dunn Avenue, and building my future retirement home there. Crick wants to know, how do you remove blocks that put you into place as a teenager because of seeing things scare me and I have no one to teach me? There are a lot of different methods of removing blockages. It depends on where the blockage is. You can get blockages for many reasons. If you don't ground your energy after energy work, you can clog your chakras really, really bad. You can get blockages from traumatic events. There are many ways to clear those blockages. Chakra work, chakra balancing work for your chakras. But for traumatic events, I have found the best method for removing those blockages is a process that we call soul retrieval. Now, when you Google or do research on soul retrieval, there's a lot of different methods that carry that same label. But in the Correllian tradition, a soul retrieval is a guided meditation with the goddess that asks for healing. And as luck would have it, Crick, that's what I asked for my healing. I was a sexual abuse survivor. I was sexually abused from the age of 10 till 18 on a nightly basis. And when I tried to do the psychic exercises, one of the very first exercises is visualizing a flower with a pearl dropping into it. And it's just to teach you how to visualize in motion. And I could not get that pearl to drop in that flower to save my soul. And I finally decided that because of my history, I had compartmentalized that trauma. I had put it in a box and I had filed it away where I didn't have to think about it anymore, and I went on with my life. Well, I think those boxes kind of blocked my psychic ability. So I did a soul retrieval and I asked the goddess for healing of my third eye. And at the moment I asked for that healing, I could literally feel pressure on my third eye, physical pressure. And I was immediately flooded with imagery. Now, Correllians believe that the ancestors and the gods speak to us through image. And image is to be interpreted by the person that sees it. When I look at an image and you look at an image, you might make a different interpretation. But what I got was a Shaolin temple roof, and that told me it was time to get off my duff and create Chosen Path Church. I got many more images that I data dumped to the person that was acting as my anchor, my note taker. At the end of the soul retrieval, you kind of stay in the meditative state and just say everything that you can remember about it, quick before it fades, like a dream fades. And then you go back and analyze that later after the soul retrieval is over. And that's what we did. So blockages are very easily healed by soul retrieval. And this guided meditation with the goddess asks her to heal whatever it is you think you need healed, but it also asks her to heal things that you don't even know need healing. And the final part of it is to bring your lost pieces of yourself. Trauma can cause you to have little bits of yourself broken off, and this kind of gathers them up from the universe and puts them back in, and you integrate that back into yourself, and you integrate that healing back into yourself. So I've actually taught classes on soul retrieval. So if you want more information about that, Cricket, just message me and I'll be glad to see if there is a way that we could do one for you, because we can do it over Skype. I don't have to be in the room with you. Okay. Clara said that she was drawing the triquetra symbol as a kid. I'm sorry, my phonics are terrible. Before she knew what the symbol was. Could that be something from the past? Yes, it could. It could either be something from the past, because we believe in reincarnation, or it could be a message from spirit guide or ancestor. So I would do a lot of research on that. I would look at your family lineage and see if there's any connection to that symbol for you. And it may be just the ancestors telling you this is where you need to be. Okay. Michelle wants to know if I have dealt with any astral projection. She gets a lot of backlash from people that don't understand it. Is there an easy way to explain it? I have experienced astral projection because purposely and unintentionally. My first astral projection, I was having a pity party for myself because my children had left home and I missed them, and we always did everything together, and I didn't have anybody to go to the beach with. So one day I just got, I'm getting out from behind this computer and I'm going to the beach. And I went to the beach by myself, got my chair set up, and way down the beach there was someone playing a bagpipe, which is my absolute favorite instrument. So I just shut my eyes and kind of listened to the bagpipe. And before I knew it, I was astral projecting as a seagull. And I was flying close over the surf, and I was flying towards that bagpipe music. And I could feel the wind in my feathers. I could feel the wind going by my eyes. It was total immersion as a seagull. Eventually I came back to my body and I was like, whoa, my first astral projection. As I became more psychically trained, I could do that at will. And my favorite astral projection, my mother died when I was 23. One of the things that tradition has given me is my mama back. We do ancestor veneration. We invoke the ancestors in our rituals. And I wanted to invoke my mother, but she died a devout Roman Catholic. So I was afraid of being disrespectful to her. I didn't want her to not think well of the paths that I had chosen for myself, and I didn't want to offend her by kind of pushing it at her by invoking her and extending that invitation, and then her having to decide whether she's going to take it or not. I went to Lord Don and I asked him about it, and he explained to me that each life cycle we are in potentially a different time, a different culture, a different religion, a different race, a different animal. The variations of incarnation are endless, and we should not assume that the belief system that a person dies with is the belief system that their higher self will make judgments by in the disincarnate state. So I invoked my mother, and even before I was a Correllian shaman, she became my spirit guide. And every year on her birthday, we have a birthday party in the astral plane. One of our favorite things when I was growing up, we'd go to Baskin Robbins in the mall and we'd get a pint of ice cream and sit there and eat it and watch people go by. So we just sit there and have a pint of ice cream and talk, and I have a big time with my mother in the astral plane every birthday. To explain it to others, it's very hard to explain if you haven't experienced it, because it sounds kind of crazy, you know. But I think the easiest thing to relate it to a lay person is an out-of-body experience. That your unconscious mind takes control and you go into an out-of-body experience. And your body's still there, it's still functioning, but you have gone off into the astral plane. Sissy says, first time watching, I claim to be Wiccan, follow the path at least. I feel like I have healing ability as well as some psychic ability. I've spoken to those that have passed on occasion. I don't get to study or practice as often as I'd like to. regular life going on, but I wanted to further my healing ability by taking energy healing or Reiki. I am told that I'm not emotionally ready. I don't know who told you that, but the ability to provide healing, if you're not a doctor or a nurse, is limited to energy. And if you learn how to do energy work, which again, we start our first degrees off doing energy work, learning how to focus that energy, how to channel the energy of the divine, is a wonderful form of healing. There are several disciplines that do that, Reiki being one of them. Another one is called pranic healing, and that's on my to-do list to get certified in pranic healing. You have to travel to do that, and so that's going to have to wait until I retire. But it's basically removing blockages in the body so that the body can function through clearing energy clogs. And it's literally like pulling threads of energy out of certain areas of the body that are blocked. So if you feel called to heal, if Spirit is telling you to heal, there are a lot of different schools and different disciplines that you can explore. Google them, do your research, see which one feels most comfortable for you, and don't take no for an answer. I mean, you are not, the people that have difficulty doing healing are usually empaths, and the difficulty is not in performing the healing, but it is in shielding themselves from that energy so that it doesn't disrupt their own energy. So if someone tells you you're not emotionally ready for that, maybe you need to practice shielding more. And shielding is, again, taught in the first lesson of the first degree. It's called basic psychic hygiene. We shield every day, because as you work with energy, you become more aware of it, and through that awareness, you kind of pull it to you. So you have to shield yourself to make sure that you don't get kind of overwhelmed with it. So you may be getting overwhelmed emotionally because you're an empath, and shielding will be your friend. Karen wants to know how she finds practitioners close to her. For Correllians, you can go on Correllian.com, and there's a list of shrines and temples to see if there's any near you. You can also go on, become a member of the Outer Court, and go on our Facebook page and just simply post a question. I'm a Correllian and I live in Jacksonville, Florida. Are there any other people out there that I can meet up with that are Correllian? So I get questions a lot of times as the membership volunteer for people that are in areas that may be not heavily populated with Wiccans, and I go on a quest for them to try to hook them up with the closest possible resource. But even if you can't find anyone locally, because we are in 113 countries, we do a lot of rituals online. We do live rituals, we do rituals in chat rooms, we do rituals on the radio. So if you can't find anyone locally, keep a lookout on thewitchschool.com and the Correllian Membership Hub, and take advantage of those remote access rituals. Jackie wants to know if we have certain requirements to be a student of Witch School. Yes, you have to be 13 years old. That's it. Our motto is a magical education for anyone, anywhere, anytime. So as long as you are 13 years old or greater, that's the only requirement. You can join Witch School for free with a basic membership. If you want access to the 200 plus courses instead of the 32, then a subscription is required. Okay. Kathleen says she sees things in the past and future, and I can talk to spirit and feel them and see them. That's wonderful. That's strong psychic ability. I'm an accountant by profession, so I'm very left brain. I'm not very right brain. And one of the hardest things for me in my clergy training was to let go of linear thinking. We teach that time is a man-made device that allows us to structure our lives, but it is a fluid thing. Past and future can mingle very easily in a mind that is trained to look for that. We also teach multidimensionality, that a soul can exist in multiple times, in multiple places, in multiple dimensions at the same time. And those souls will go through that cycle to gain the lessons that the universe wants them to learn there. That was very hard for me to wrap my head around. It was kind of out there to me. But then I started looking at quantum physics. And I'm like, oh my God. They are now scientifically proving theories around these very things. So it's not as far-fetched as it seems. And once I made that connection and put it in terms that I could relate to, yeah, there's dimension bleed over, there's time bleed over. And if you're trained to look for it, you see it more than a layperson would. Sheila wanted to know if I believe childhood trauma can cause an irreparable blockage. Absolutely not. The goddess can heal anything. How do I know if I have a gift like you? I don't have a gift, Tree. I have a trained ability. I don't think of it as a gift. It's something I've worked hard to acquire and train to do. I had that ability, I just didn't know how to use it. And again, first degree clergy course. I keep on harping on that, but even if you have no intention of ever being clergy, there is so much good information in there that will help you on your spiritual path or your psychic path that it's really a win-win situation if you go ahead and do it. You do not have to become clergy just because you've completed that course, but it will be a big help. Veronica wants to know, how do I know if I'm a witch or a psychic? Pendulum told me I was a white witch. I know I'm an empath. Depends on what your definition of a witch is. And a lot of traditions have a lot of different definitions. But my personal definition of a witch is someone that has taken the vow to live by the Wiccan Rede. You have basically committed your life to harming none. Now, all the other things that we've been talking about, spell work and psychic ability and those kind of things, those are trainings that you can do whether you're a witch or not a witch. You don't have to be a witch to do those things. But when you take an oath to live by the Wiccan Rede, in my book, that makes you a witch. Ray Howe says, it's been 9 years. Any contact with school, lifetime member. Ray, send an email to support@witchschool.com. and that will come to me, and I will look up your account. It would be very helpful if you give me things like any possible email addresses that might have been used 9 years ago, definitely your date of birth, any possible names you might have used, because a lot of people use pseudonyms for their magical workings. So any information that you could tell me about the account, I will look it up. We have 230,000 something members in Witch School. Okay, let's see, Michelle. I'm so glad that you can establish a relationship with your past mother. That's wonderful. Sissy finds it very helpful and encouraging. Yay, I did my job. Melissa wants to know if I have any advice or tips on how to introduce my daughter to the magical world. She will be 13 soon, and I want her to take things seriously. The best way for you to parent your child on a religious path is to get the hell out of their way. I know that sounds weird. We raised our children that selecting a spiritual path that was going to be integrated into your every facet of your life and define how you think of life and death and immortality or the lack thereof is an adult decision. We always told our children that when they made that decision, no matter what it was, whether we agreed with it or not, that we would support them in it because it was their relationship with divine, not ours. We lived our life as an example, hoping that they would make the connection. When they expressed interest in another religion, we encouraged them to research it. We encouraged them to go to church with people or synagogue with people or whatever, to see if it really spoke to them. I think as a parent, the best gift we can give our children is to instill a moral code in them, which is very different than a religion. A moral code is something that allows them to listen to their gut on making decisions, whether something's right or wrong. Whenever my kids would get in trouble when they were little, and even when they were teenagers or adults, if they made a bad decision, I wanted them to walk me through their thought process. Okay, how did we get from the rules to breaking the rules? Walk me through that process so that I could help them make a better moral decision in the future. So if you would like your daughter to follow the same path as you, be that example. Let her see how your path influences your life, and then step back and let her make her own decisions, because as soon as you start pushing her towards something, she's going to start backpedaling and going the other way in the opposite direction. Funny story on that. My daughter was pagan before I was. She was not a witch. She was of the belief that you harmed hers, she was going to curse your butt. But in her college years, I used to go down and visit them on the weekend. And one Friday night, I arrived at her apartment, and she said, "Oh, Mom, I've got something to tell you. It's serious. I got to talk with you." So I'm like, okay, she's not dating anyone, so she can't be pregnant. Her grades are really good. And I'm going through the parent checklist. And so I sit down and I say, "Okay, well, lay it on me. What's going on?" She says, "Well, I don't want you to be upset with me, but I've become a Christian." And I told her, I said, "Well, honey, that's wonderful. Tell me all about it." And she told me how she had been invited to church with someone, and it really spoke to her. It moved her emotionally. She felt more connected to the divine than she ever felt as a pagan. And I celebrated with her. I told her it was wonderful, and I was so happy that she had established a relationship, a one-on-one relationship with the divine. And if that came under the Christian view for her, then that's what it was. Of course, that later that evening, I told her I was really upset with her. And she says, oh, I knew it, I knew it, I knew it. And I said, no, I'm not upset because you're a Christian. I'm upset because you didn't trust me. Because I always told you whatever path you chose, I would support you in it, and you didn't trust me to do that, and that hurts a lot. So we had a nice long talk over that. She apologized profusely, and a few weeks later I went to her baptism. Susan wants to know what I think about sleep paralysis. This has happened to me my whole life, and it's worse in my teen years or 20s. I've had several friends that have experienced sleep paralysis, and it's been explained to me several ways. One is that it is an ancestor that is demanding your attention. You know, you're going to stay right there until I've told you what you need to hear. Of course, if we're so petrified that we're paralyzed, we've kind of got the wall up, and we're not listening, we're panicking. There are a combination of herbs that I put together for a friend that was experiencing this. Some of them are kind of toxic, so you can't have it around where small children might get into it. But she hung it on her bed, and she uses that to relieve that paralysis. She doesn't have that paralysis. And she notices after a few months that it's starting to come back a little bit. So she'll put fresh herbs in the bag that she hangs on her bed. So there are an herb combination. And if you want to message me, I'll go back and look that up again, because I don't remember them off the top of my head. I'm not known for a great memory, but I'll be glad to look those up for you. Oh, Bowen Bars. As leader of a church, how can your members best support the church's needs as well as their own? I love you, Bowen. For those that you don't know, Bowen is part of my church. The best way you can support a church is to get active in it. Any religious organization that is run, whether it's Wiccan or Christian or Jewish, it's a community, and it takes a village to make things happen. So if the organization that you belong to has sign-ups for rituals, to lead rituals, and at Chosen Path Church, anyone can lead a ritual. They don't have to be clergy to do so. Or teach a class, arrange a field trip, do a service project, coordinate a service project. Those are all things that we do at Chosen Path Church. And the more of those that can be done by other people in the organization, that frees up the clergy of the church to do ministerial work. We've had people die. We've had people with family members with life-threatening things. We've had house cleansings to do, and wickenings and funerals, and there's certain things that clergy have to do. So anything else that needs to be done in a temple or a church or a synagogue that you're a member of, volunteer, get active. The investment of time and follow through, when you say you're going to do something, following through and doing it is so much appreciated, more than any financial contribution ever could be thought of. So get involved, open your eyes, look what needs to be done, and say, hey, I think I can do that for you. And whoever's in charge will say, oh, thank God. I'm Melissa from Australia. We have many members in Australia. So any other questions? We've been going for about an hour now. Seems like 5 minutes, but I'll be glad to answer any more questions as long as you send them to me. Going once, going twice. Okay, everyone, I've really enjoyed your questions. They've been some very interesting and profound ones. If I did not answer them adequately, or if you have a follow-up question, please feel free to message me. I do not accept people that I don't personally know on my personal Facebook page. It's a privacy issue thing with me, but you can message me and I will be happy to return your message. Look for Laurie Denman in Jacksonville, Florida, and the icon is a little picture of a pug because I do pug rescue. So again, thank you everyone for attending tonight. Thank you for submitting your questions, and maybe I'll see you again in another Ask a Wish session. Thank you. Good night, everyone.